Today, to start out, I wanted to go over all of the Konoha 12, as a short summary at least of where they started. When I first started this rewrite, I didn't share the exact capabilities of each of the genin, because through missions and the like, I wanted everyone to get a more naturalistic perspective of their individual strengths. But now that we're at the precipice before the tuning exams, I wanted to lay out my ideas where these characters were when they first became genin. So I think to start off with this, we're going to have to look at the class rankings. Just a reminder, this is my rewrite, not canon, so I will inevitably upset someone with this list. However, as we go through the list, I'll cover why they've ranked where they have. This ranking is a result of a variety of statistics compiled throughout their years at the Academy. This would be things like chakra reserves, intuition, physical ability, and then the obvious, genjutsu, taijutsu, ninjutsu. We would also look at test scoring, or basically intelligence. Finally, considering the world they live in, I think growth would be a pretty important factor as well. Some characters like Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, Naruto in this case, Sasuke, Neji, Kiba, Shino, and Hinata all have either a Kekkei Genkai or a Hiden technique. Though you could consider it cheating, I would think that they'd have a hidden system to scale whether or not any of said characters were growing well with their special technique. I could definitely see them favoring characters that have specialized talents like a dojutsu or being able to possess someone, etc. But anyway, let's talk about these rankings, why I've chosen them as such, and my thoughts on each character as brand new genin. Number 12, Rock Lee. I think this one speaks for itself. The sheer inability to use genjutsu and ninjutsu would basically force them to create a special curriculum just for Lee. He doesn't come from a known clan, so he doesn't have any Hiden or Kekkei Genkai to speak of. He's also not the smartest character, or even I would argue in the top half of the Konoha 12. As true now as it was when he first became a genin is that Rock Lee is clearly the best at taijutsu of his fellow genin. Let's then talk about my thoughts on the character himself. As I understand it, all humans have chakra, but normal citizens can't access it, or at least don't care to learn how to. And those who become ninja are generally predisposed for it because they can easily access their chakra. So a character like Rock Lee definitely has chakra, he just can't seem to access it. From a creative perspective, it's a tremendous gift to have a gimped character like Rock Lee, because it opens up the possibility for a major breakthrough at some point where he unlocks access to his chakra. This would elevate him to one of the strongest of his group, because then he'd be able to get good with ninjutsu and genjutsu while still being the best at taijutsu. However, I'm not breaking from the mold for Rock Lee. He will remain the taijutsu master we all know and love from canon. This is just a note of curiosity why Kishimoto chose to never take that route with him. While he can't access this chakra consciously, he can still open the inner gates in canon, which increases your chakra output. There's this leap of logic that Kishimoto never directly addresses that explains why the inner gates is so effective for Lee. If Lee can't access his chakra, then increasing the amount he has shouldn't affect him physically, right? So my outlook on this character is not that he has little chakra, just that he can't access it, as if his chakra control were graded as a 0% fail grade. And he's only ranked 12 because of these shortcomings that he can't control. Number 11, Shikamaru. Yep, it's going to get controversial. I'm trying not to rank these characters based on personal feelings, but rather how I assume they treated school life. Just as in canon, Shikamaru wasn't a tryhard at all at the academy. He did the minimum possible effort to get passing grades. But Shikamaru's so smart that he could do these tests with his eyes closed. He never picked up medical ninjutsu because it was sort of optional and required much more initial effort than conventional ninjutsu. Because he slacked off wherever he could, he wasn't in the ideal physical shape either. Neglecting his body has resulted in a smaller starting chakra pool. This is something that has naturally grown as he's done missions and has been forced to actually try. So though his grades were less than expected, I'm sure he exhibited concise decision-making in training exercises and practical tests. and though we only ever see him use his Hiden technique in canon, he's quite naturally gifted with ninjutsu. He tries to reserve his limited chakra for shadow possession instead of using it on less specialized techniques. Additionally, as I discussed a few videos ago, my rewrite has a unique conditional chakra nature called Shadow. While the Nara clan's shadow possession jutsu utilizes this chakra nature to work, so Shikamaru has a natural inborn edge with one of the most challenging chakra natures to master. And because he was used to just gliding by in the academy, it really put a strain on him to have a team that wasn't cohesive. So his challenges since becoming Genin haven't been training a new technique or self-improvement. Instead, he's been mentally drained by the conflict between Sasuke and Neji, and that's disrupted his focus. Because he was hiding his potential in the academy, his perceived growth to leaders of the village might seem drastic. However, to our eyes, because we know how smart he is, that growth won't feel as drastic. Shikamaru is a sleeper, and we haven't seen him wake up yet. Number 10. Tenten. Tenten's most drastic difference in my rewrite is that she actually has lines and a personality. No, what I meant to say is that she was with a taijutsu specialized team in canon. In my rewrite, though she's very much along that kenjutsu and taijutsu vein, I wanted to give her connection to some chakra nature, as you've already seen. And in order for her to be even halfway effective with that, she needs to not have a small chakra pool. However, Tenten has terrible chakra control. One of her only lines in canon was in a flashback when she told Might Guy that she dreams of being as strong as the legendary Sannin Tsunade. So she got pretty soul-crushing news in the academy when she learned she lacked the chakra control to use medical ninjutsu. But as that's not the only part of Tsunade's identity, Tenten has switched focus to kenjutsu and taijutsu. Before I go further, kenjutsu is skill in swordplay. Tenten is a general weapons expert, but with these recent swords, I think it's a given that she'll lean more into kenjutsu. But with that horrible chakra control, she can't focus her chakra nature into a point or direction. I tried to demonstrate this when she clashed with Ringo. Her use of lightning was almost aimless, because she wasn't skilled enough to direct it. And her chakra control is so bad that she often dumps it all accidentally instead of letting it trickle out. She tries very hard, but other than her weapons, wasn't very good at anything in particular. She's always struck me as the sort of character that doesn't grow very much until they find something they love, and then they grow a lot. I think in the Ninja Academy she just didn't know where to grow, and it hurt her overall potential at first. Number 9. Choji. Being best friends with the laziest guy in town can lead you down a path of also being lazy. Choji has very flexible chakra reserves, he's strong and durable, and he's pretty well rounded. But prior to Kurenai trying to broaden his horizons, he just had a minor ability with his expansion jutsu. Because he's a gentle soul, it was very easy for him to pick up medical ninjutsu. That need to help others allowed him to care about learning the skill. However, just as in actual medicine, medical ninjutsu has a very high skill ceiling. Choji isn't cut out for the specialization. He's also a character with tremendous potential for growth, if only he finds the confidence to do so. I feel like he was pretty good on practical exams and lackluster in written exams. I don't want to claim that Shikamaru dragged him down because that paints Shikamaru as the bad guy. It's just a symptom of trying to be like your friends in school, something that most of us were a victim of at some point in our lives. If Choji had been focusing, I would have ranked him higher. He's one of my favorite characters, but like I said, I'm not going to rank him higher just because I like him. Choji's not very confident, and though he initially showed a lot of effort to contribute, that visage was shattered recently. Number 8. Hinata. Hinata has problems. She's plenty smart, and her confidence is about the height of a toothpick. And this has affected her through all her life's ventures. She's grown up in a household that expects great things of her, only to end up disappointed. Whether it's her father in canon, or uncle in my rewrite, the same expectation is there. She's a disenfranchised heir to an extremely prestigious house. Her cousin is leaps and bounds better than her in their birthright dojutsu. However, on that topic, the Byakugan allows many things. Along with Neji, she was the first in their class to discover their first chakra nature. Speaking of which, hers is fire, which I don't think I've shown so far in the rewrite, but it'll show up later. The Byakugan also grants an advantage with medical ninjutsu in a huge variety of ways. So Hinata was also able to become proficient with this through her time in the academy. And due to the gentle fist she was required to learn outside of school, she has skill with taijutsu as well. After all, just knowing the technique isn't enough if the opponent is faster or more agile. You have to make a connection with your strikes. I guess I would describe her beginning skills as lacking in the basics but having seeds in more complex skills. Similar to Choji, if Hinata found her confidence, her growth would be substantial. Unless that happens, we're dealing with the typical shy girl who weirdly hides behind trees or walls instead of socializing like a normal human being. Number 7. Naruto. Naruto obviously has obscene chakra reserves, but his chakra control isn't where it could be. And while he is a dummy, he does have that fighting intuition that allows him to make snap judgments. He's horrible in genjutsu, but his taijutsu and ninjutsu are pretty good. However, he never tried with medical ninjutsu, so he's totally unable to use it. Clearly, with the Nine Tails and his familial heritage, Naruto has substantial growth waiting for him, but it's simply something he hasn't utilized yet. He never really tried in school because of all the prejudice he faced. His teachers weren't necessarily mean to him, but he was always chosen last unless the Hokage was visiting the school. Naruto has been forced into this life of duality, where people on the outside hate him and people on the inside love him, and he adapts his personality to the circumstances. He's not a jerk to his dad or generally in the presence of his dad, but the second he's separated and among others, he becomes hard to work with. He also has still living relatives, unlike in canon. Remember, the Uzumaki clan in my rewrite lives. They're just nomadic and never stay in one spot very long. Knowing that there are others who share his blood must surely give him hope. He's also had a prodigy like Sasuke constantly come into his home to have secret meetings with his dad. But surrounded by ultra-skilled individuals, he's also come to expect great things of himself, only to falter. Between the Sannin, his dad, and Sasuke, he struggles with meeting an internal expectation. Like I said, he has the potential to do all of this, he just needs to realize that himself. Number 6. Kiba. Kiba is one of the most confident of the Konoha 12. This carried him through the academy. He is about as dumb as Naruto, but he's got taijutsu and ninjutsu skills in spades. He's strong and fast, and has the energy to fight over a long period. Again, similarly to Naruto, due to his confidence and wealthy chakra reserves, Kiba's potential growth is vast. Kiba's never had any shortcomings about himself, so his ability to adapt and grow is nearly unparalleled. However, this confidence is a double-edged blade. As much as it helps him with his astounding potential, it also constantly makes him underestimate foes. Even against Sasuke, who he ranked lower than, Kiba didn't use hollow words when he challenged him. Kiba 100% thought he could beat Sasuke, and easily, and this kind of thinking got him beat. Also, with Akamaru at his side, I thought summoning the ninja dogs was a no-brainer, but again, a weird choice Kishimoto opted not to do. He wouldn't necessarily need them for tracking, since he has that down himself. Using them in the space of combat could yield some fun results too. Number 5. Shino. Shino for me is like a non-lazy version of Shikamaru. He's deliberate and very smart. His skill with ninjutsu is very strong, and though he's pretty capable with taijutsu in canon, that never made sense to me. His body is home to thousands of bugs. Would it not be more delicate and prone to injury than the average person? That's why I've changed his ability to be a little bit weaker in taijutsu. While he is primarily a sensor-type ninja, his bugs have growing versatility that will begin aiding him in so many different ways. Though I would never argue he's as smart as Shikamaru, he's definitely in the top 3 in terms of intelligence. He was able to perform medical ninjutsu in the academy, but never took a liking to it and let the skill drop off. A good strength of Shino and Kiba in canon is that temperamentally the two are exact opposites. Kiba's wild and crazy, while Shino tends to prefer observing from a distance before taking action. And that's a truth that remains in my rewrite, despite the two now being on different teams. I would argue that Shino probably doesn't have a large chakra reserve, but he most definitely has very good chakra control. From a writing perspective, Shino's probably the easiest to write for, despite that I haven't done a whole lot yet with him. He's the easiest to write for because the versatility of his bugs basically give him limitless potential. He might never conjure a meteor, but he can potentially do everything in between. Number 4, Ino. Again, I understand this might be a controversial choice. My takeaway from Ino in canon was that she just overflowed with confidence and seemed smart enough to never have to try with written exams. Even through the story in canon, nothing seemed able to dampen her mood. She always seemed fired up, if not slightly exasperated by her team. So maybe this mindset has tricked me into thinking she's better than she is. However, her mind transfer jutsu is simultaneously the strongest and the weakest of all the Hiden techniques. She does fall unconscious, but she fully possesses someone. In order to possess someone, I think that's a very draining trick. So versus canon, I'd argue my Ino has more chakra reserves and definitely very good chakra control. Just as in canon, she's also able to use medical ninjutsu, and she's quite good with it. Despite being a Hiden technique, I'm not sure if it would classify as genjutsu or ninjutsu, since it so overtly affects the opponent's mind as to effectively take full control of it. For the sake of my rewrite, it is a genjutsu type ability. Her initial chakra nature is water, which of course we learned about when Guy tried to make her manifest water in the desert. I think it's harmless to reveal their chakra natures, as they're all the same as canon. Only characters like Tenten, who in canon didn't have a listed chakra nature, are instances where I made up their chakra nature. Number 3, Sakura. In a controlled environment like training exercises, Sakura excelled. Of course, she's the smartest character besides Shikamaru, making the classroom setting extremely ideal for her. So her score is only so high because she was in an ideal environment. She also showed exceptional promise with medical ninjutsu and retains an advanced skill level with it. Though she didn't take to genjutsu as strongly as she did after becoming a genin, she was always rated as a genjutsu type throughout school. If I had to rank her weaknesses through school, then probably taijutsu. And with no discernible specialization, it's possible her potential for growth left something to the imagination. Regardless, I just want to stress, Sakura is only number 3 because school was her favorite place to be. She excelled at everything in what was expected of her. For potential in the future, she's obviously rocking the genjutsu hard. With her medical ninjutsu, she still has a lot of diverse growth she can have. Just as in canon, she has all the basics memorized and mastered. It's breaking out from that soft ceiling that she'll need to do to continue to be taken seriously. Number 2, Sasuke. Oh boy. Throughout all of canon, Sasuke is constantly said to be just as much of a prodigy as Itachi, except with keener eyes. But even though it's said, it's never shown. Sasuke, as a fresh genin in canon, is nowhere near where Itachi was, so that statement's always confused me. In my rewrite, him and Itachi are different. Itachi's no longer around for him or anyone else to compare, but I will say that while he was alive, Itachi was certainly a completely different level than Sasuke. However, Sasuke still has the potential to outgrow his brother's accomplishments. While Neji was the first kid in the academy to learn his first chakra nature, Sasuke was the first in the academy's history to discover 2 of his chakra natures before graduating. And he is, of course, fire and lightning. Of course, most Uchiha have an innate affinity with fire, but as soon as Sasuke learned lightning, he quickly started working with it. He was so quick to pick up skills considered advanced for academy students that he quickly outgrew the academy's curriculum. Sasuke doesn't just have an enormous potential, but he also has enormous expectations considering the vastly weaker state his clan is currently in. Of course, his Sharingan boosts reaction speeds, which help with taijutsu and ninjutsu, and its potential to copy any normal jutsu leaves the opportunity for deception, for advanced combat tactics, and as a strict intimidation factor. It hasn't been since Itachi that the village has had a strong Uchiha scaring the bad guys away. Number 1, Neji. We've finally gotten to the kid that ranked the best in school. Neji has been extremely perceptive from an age so young it preceded school. At no point in the academy did he ever face loss against fellow students. He was number 1 in everything. In terms of potential and promise, Neji is more often than the other genin compared to Minato's genius from a young age. Of course, in my writing I've mostly focused on his conflicts with Sasuke, but for a genin, Neji can stand on his own 2 legs. He does not seek the approval of others, and he does not need to. Perhaps his greatest weakness is that Neji is not humble. He knows he's better than you and won't hesitate to illustrate it. But he doesn't have a stick up his butt in the same way Canon Neji did. Canon Neji was extremely antagonistic and oddly entitled. Rewrite Neji is exactly aware of how good he is, and that comes off as being a bit of a jerk to others. If you know the Big Bang Theory TV show at all, I'd compare his ability to someone like Sheldon Cooper. He knows he's the best, and sometimes he's going to insult you, but he's not trying to make you angry, he's just stating fact. This, coupled with his automatic and extreme rivalry with Sasuke, and he hasn't come off as the nicest guy yet. His chakra natures are fire, earth, and water. Because though Sasuke was the youngest to discover 2 elements in the academy, Neji was the youngest to discover 3. He's also the youngest Hyuga in known history to learn 3 so early. Also, I wanted to talk about chakra some more, because apparently that's my favorite topic. I want all the genin's chakra natures to play important roles in their ability development. If we're going to call Sakura a genjutsu type, then she's going to do a lot of genjutsu. But if she's also a water nature, then she needs to have something that reflects that. I think it vastly impacts the depth of these characters. I've said it before, but canon makes all the characters into one-trick ponies, and I think that's needlessly crippling. This is also a reminder that the Hyuga House puts strong emphasis on chakra natures. Through Gentle Fist, one can choose to close a chakra point or absorb the opponent's chakra nature. This allows the user to adapt, manipulate, and eventually develop that element as a natural occurrence in their own body. This is obviously a rewrite-specific trick. The Byakugan can see the various colors of chakra natures, and through Gentle Fist, a Hyuga can eventually attain all the chakra natures. That is, in fact, a very big part of any Hyuga's growth. And, though this should be the end of the episode, I'm going to transition now into a Minisode, focused on a few more genin in training on the precipice before the Chunin exams. Kiba is begging Guy's ninja tortoise Ningame to allow him to sign a contract. Ningame is disgusted at the idea that other tortoises would be fighting alongside mutts. Kiba says that he has so many ideas for combined jutsus, like what he can do with Akamaru, and again, the tortoise flatly denies him. Meanwhile, Rock Lee's been training more fiercely than he has in his entire life, which is saying something. He's graduated to heavier weights on his legs, and he's decided to keep training until he just can't. Guy tells Lee to rest, but he refuses as he punches a log for the 800th time. He needs to be just as good with taijutsu as everyone else is with all of their abilities combined. At this point, Lee's been awake for nearly 36 hours and training for most of that time. He's in shambles. Ino has mastered the art of possessing animals, and now Guy has her rapidly swapping between targets. She possesses a bird and in seconds relinquishes it, and then possesses a nearby rabbit in a cage, and then relinquishes that. One mind transfer is disorienting enough and draining, but Guy has slowly augmented her stamina through this crazy training. He tells her that one day she'll be able to run around while casting the jutsu, and she again scoffs that it's impossible. She tries to reiterate that her mind enters the opponent. How can her body run around when the controller is unmanned? Guy smiles at her and says, "Where there's a will, there's a way." Ino is just exasperated for the nth time at Guy's perspective of how techniques can improve. Reluctantly sparring with an exhausted Rock Lee, Guy sees the young genin's legs shaking, and there's no power in his strikes. Finally, he drops the goofy attitude and tells Lee to stop. This level of exhaustion could hospitalize him. Lee refuses and starts complaining that their only big mission was a failure, and he couldn't do anything versus their ambushers. He further complains that when he tried fighting with Neji, a fellow genin, the gap in their skill was so substantial that he couldn't even lay a hand on him. Everything that Lee has been doing since miraculously graduating, since they made concessions for his glaring weaknesses, has led to failure. Whether he's a nobody kid or a genin with just D-rank missions under his belt, Lee is furious that he hasn't accomplished anything. They couldn't even run fast enough to help solve the border dispute. Just as in the classroom, Lee's just lagging behind everyone else. Guy tells him that he's accomplished so much despite his shortcomings. Lee has nothing to be ashamed of. He places a hand on Lee's shoulder to soothe him, but Lee smacks it away and refuses the sympathy. Guy knows that along with the physical exhaustion, Lee's also mentally exhausted, explaining his complete lack of patience at the moment. Guy tells him if he wants to take part in the Chunin exams, he needs to be in top condition. But where he's going, he'll be hospitalized during the exams. Lee dismisses the warning, yelling now that he can still train for many hours. He turns and strikes the stump again and creates a fist-shaped crater in its side. Guy is shocked. Lee was barely able to touch Guy, let alone make impact with his strikes. Is this Lee's second wind? No, that's not what's happened at all. Lee just accidentally unlocked the first gate. Through sheer force of will and anger, Lee has opened one of the 8 inner gates. Guy is now stunned. Kiba and Ino both notice a radiating energy coming from Lee as he continues pushing, and Guy watches firsthand as the second gate opens. When next he punches the stump, its whole top half rips off. Instead of shutting down Lee before he hurts himself, Guy uses the moment to help Lee remember how he feels right now so he can do this later. Guy's never heard of someone unlocking the gates just from desperation and being completely ignorant of its machinations. Kiba's excited by the show of power and asks Guy if he can learn it too. Guy tells him it's a forbidden jutsu. He shouldn't by all rights teach any of them how to utilize the gates. But if he's going to be training Lee on how to control it, he may as well train Kiba, right? The first and second gates aren't that harmful, it should be okay. Ino is also interested, though maybe not as much as Kiba is. Ningame tells Kiba if he can learn how to open the first gate, then maybe he'd be worth signing a contract with. He also tells Kiba that even though Lee just did it accidentally, the 8 inner gates are some of the most difficult techniques to learn. He notes that Lee might just be a genius for such a feat. The tortoises can put their differences aside with the dogs as long as Kiba can prove himself strong enough to represent 2 ninja animals. This puts the fire in Kiba's eyes, and he begs Guy to show him. Meanwhile, Lee collapses from the inhuman exertion he just did. We get to see Kurenai training her team. Shino comes to training after talking with one of the elite jonin of his family and realizing the effect certain bugs can be augmented to achieve. So he's taken in a queen bee off the direction of his elder and helped by the advice of Kurenai. The collection of pollen and creation of chakra honey would give him longevity in a fight. Not to mention the sheer offensive power of bees in general. But he has to spend time infusing his own chakra with them, as well as learning to guide them from A to B. Bees aren't as good at tracking as they are with remembering routes. So he has a sort of reverse tracking system that he can also potentially use. Choji's still got concerned eyes on him, but in the realm of a safe training environment, he doesn't struggle. From Sakura's help, he's gotten a much better grasp of basic genjutsu, and likes the idea of firing off ghost fireballs in tandem with real ninjutsu. So he spends his time practicing this. Sakura has learned more about how sound incorporates into an illusion. Once she's weaved the illusion, she learns that she can clap to cause the visual aspect of the genjutsu to twist and mutate. Kurenai notes that it adds a nauseating effect. She also notes that she was never this creative with genjutsu when she was learning how to use it. Never mind learning and mastering the style, Sakura is naturally inventing unique ways of enhancing the effect for different results. The genin have all been forbidden from asking about what happened with the Mist Ninja and that weird spiked thing that clobbered him. But Sakura and Naruto saw it happen firsthand, so Sakura has been given a talking to several times when she just can't restrain herself from asking about it. She knows the 4th Hokage showed up immediately and the threat was probably addressed immediately, but it's still a spooky series of events. Lastly, we settle on Asuma, and he's dismissed his genin for the day, insisting that they need as much rest as they can get for the Chunin exams tomorrow. But he's held Naruto back. He asks if he can see Naruto's Raijin blade for a moment, and when Naruto gives it to him, Asuma inspects its craftsmanship before pocketing it. Naruto calls him out on taking the kunai, but Asuma tells him that all he's done with his father's gift is run away. In the Chunin exams, if he wants to do well, he needs to not run away. Naruto grumbles and says he never runs away for good, just to formulate strategy. Asuma chuckles and sarcastically agrees with him. Asuma tells Naruto that of all the genin, he's easily got the most chakra, and that's forgetting the fox. He tells him that he wants to see Naruto actually try. Naruto's not taking the exams to show off or impress his peers or even his dad. The only person who benefits from Naruto's performance is Naruto. He needs his team to get through it, but he needs himself to stand out. If the only trick in his book is to teleport into a tree and hide, all he'll do is disappoint those judging him. He tells Naruto that he'll get the kunai back after the exams. Naruto asks him why he didn't train him in anything else then. Asuma reminds him about the wind blade jutsu he's been working on. If he perfects that, then he won't need to rely on the flying Raijin. Naruto raises an eyebrow at Asuma, insisting that Asuma understands how insane the flying Raijin is. Asuma remarks that the flying Raijin, by itself, is only defensive, and Naruto can't win any matches with just that. Without the kunai at his fingertips, Naruto will be forced to rely on everything else he knows how to do. And with that, we're officially finished the episode. I have some appointments this week that might make a Friday episode impossible, which is why this episode is so much longer. But I'll still try to make it work, and worst case scenario, you'll have to wait until next Monday for the next episode. Of course, there's a lot to talk about from this episode. Between my doubtlessly controversial rankings of the genin and Rock Lee unlocking the 8 inner gates, I hope to see a lot of feedback in the comments. I'm not sure if I've talked about this before, but I really enjoy feedback. I don't record episodes ahead of time, so I can take that feedback and incorporate some of it as soon as possible. But I think it's also important to note that I unironically love both the positive and negative feedback. The positive feedback obviously feels good to see, but the negative feedback forces me to think about how I'm doing things, or whether I'm doing something wrong, or even whether my words are hard to interpret. The theory crafting is also probably my favorite part of it all. Through the entire history of this rewrite so far, I've had a few comments that have guessed everything right exactly. I'll have an episode peppered with mystery, and someone guesses all of it right, and it just blows my mind every time. Because sometimes I'll put down a very obvious mystery, like Haku for example. From my perspective, though Haku wasn't explicitly present during the first part of the mission, I dropped what I felt like many hints that he was there, that I thought it would be a fun discussion in the comments. But the initial feedback was, why isn't Haku with Zabuza? Why isn't he there? So mysteries that I think are obvious and easy to solve are sometimes swing and a miss. Meanwhile, mysteries that I think are very strong and will take a while to solve are solved within hours of uploading the video. Of course, I maintain a strict no-spoiler approach when answering these comments, so I'll never confirm or deny which comments are right or wrong. But it's just a funny observation I've had throughout the rewrite so far. And though I've made it to 750 subscribers, thank you by the way, there are several commenters that I would like to thank for their insight, their theory crafting, or just general positive attitude, as well as their participation in almost every single video that I have. They are in no particular order, and apologies in advance for mispronouncing some of your names. Axel Boost, Azure, Clash Blue Light, Gold Frog, Jason Alexander, Jay, Lisa Stewart, Logan, Naviro, Noah Jarrett, Pumpkin, Sir Brawl, Sven Svensson, Sean Winters, Avon Cornish, and Swamp Kryakwa. I need to clarify that I read every single comment, and that heart I put in is just proof of that. But these individuals are memorable to me because they've left a lot of comments, and a lot of those comments have caused me to lean back in my chair and just think. But with that said and done, it's time to conclude this episode. Thank you all very much for watching or listening. The tuning exams are up next, and we're going to have a lot of fun with new stuff and nostalgia. The sky's the limit.